Mute us again. All right, so it is 5:15. This is the second meeting of the Advisory Committee on Homelessness. Would it be beneficial for everyone? I'll admit it would be beneficial for me if to start, we went around and just did names again as we start to learn one another.
Yeah, and I think that's not bad because the people joining us
don't
know us. And I think we may have to do it a couple of times as members, community members and stuff.
So I'll kick us off. My name is Carolyn Lear. I am the city manager.
I'm Pat. I'm Pat Keeley today.
How about that?
Alton Bundle, Director of Marketing for Hollywood Casino.
Tony Yang, psychiatrist locally.
Ben Treach, Director of Bangor Public Library.
Hey now, my name is Jason Goodrich.
I am Melissa Rhodes, Director of Property Management.
Howdy, I'm Teal Vasquez. My pronouns are they, them, and I am a community organizer in the Bangor area.
And city staff in the back row.
I am Bruce Hughes. I'm the homeless response coordinator for Public Health and Community Services.
I'm Robin Stanicki. I'm the Community Development Officer.
I'm Dave Bush. I'm the Deputy Police Chief.
Right. So the first item on the agenda is to elect a chair, vice chair, and secretary for this committee. The way we'll do it sort of informally, but aligned with council normal procedures, which are to first take nominations and then do committee vote. If it's okay with everyone, we can start with the chair. I may have said president. Did I say president?
No,
Chair.
you said chair.
Okay.
You said chair.
The chair and the vice chair. Forgive my
Absolutely. So the chair will generally take over what I've done thus far in the conduct of meetings. I saw it. Also, I'll be looking probably to meet with the chair ahead of each meeting to help set the agenda. And then the vice chair generally will just step in when the chair isn't available. The role of secretary has traditionally been sort of minute taking. Fortunately for you all, we generally allow YouTube to do that for us because we're being recorded and it's being saved. So unless there's some failure, that's a pretty easy non-committal role.
So I know we have to generate an interim report as well as a final thing. Is that requiring of the three people to write this, or is it going to be supported with the city outright?
So I could see that going one of two ways. So the I'll talk a bit about the RFP for a facilitator. I did include in that RFP the possibility, but not the commitment, that we would also use the facilitator to draft.
Yep.
If we did not choose to do that, probably primarily because of cost, city staff would support you with that. You wouldn't be expected to originate those drafts.
Because I could see the three the officers kind of reviewing the they'll help identify the path of the content and whatever it is, and then they review content, and then it goes on. Once you approve it, it goes to committee review it, and then they tinker with that until the final draft.
Yeah, I think given the amount of time you're already committing for no compensation, it would be unreasonable to also expect you to draft.
Because we would need a librarian to really know how to.
Unless Ben is volunteering.
I do enjoy writing.
So if you'd like, we could start with nominations for chair. And that can include self-nomination if anyone would like to volunteer for that role.
So can I sort of like dramatically nominate someone else, like Greek?
Absolutely.
I nominate Pat Healy. Okay. Had to try.
I nominate Alvin.
Yeah, I was second that,
Okay.
sorry. It's because we like you. No, seriously.
That could go either way.
No.
Also know you're chairing the parking committee too.
I am,
We
yes.
respect.
Oh, yeah.
Do we have any other nominations that anyone would like?
I would say Jason, but I don't know if you wanna do that. I feel weird putting people in spots like that, or like.
The only thing with
I
that,
enjoyed it a little bit when I.
transportation.
Right.
system.
And then again.
Yeah, that would be the only issue that I have at this time with that.
I think.
I think actually, once we identify chair as the vice chair, it's gonna be complementary to that person.
Right.
So I think, in terms of that piece, I think, because they're supposed to support each other. So.
And that I'm good with. I can
Jay,
do
would you
that.
be able to do any of this chair work remotely?
That's a question that I wouldn't know. That-
Can we-
Yeah.
Can we discourse about that now? How do people feel about that?
Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just from an operational standpoint, it's generally more efficient if the chair is able to be in the room, like obviously extenuating circumstances, I think it's totally fine. But I think, and this is by no means me stumping for myself because I had other names in my head by myself, but I do think that for a chair to be fully effective, it's best if they can be in the room as often as possible.
The only time I've seen that work, the remote is when everybody's
Yeah,
remote.
exactly.
Continuous remote. That's the only way to do it, but if you have a hybrid like this, you really have to have it in person, so.
So Alton, what's your capacity like? Do you want to do this?
I mean, I certainly can. I personally think that, we have some other folks that I would have nominated, honestly, Dr. Tony and Amy. You guys are both subject matter experts and well-respected in the community, and I see a lot of value in the chairperson holding those qualifications. By no means do I push that on to either of you, but certainly should I be nominated, I think it would be awesome if one of you would be vice chair to help provide, to your point, that complementary knowledge. So I think it's important for that balance and where I'm not coming from a perspective of subject matter expertise. There is some drawbacks to that.
I also think there's benefit to it
Agreed.
because I think there's a way to be sometimes more neutral. And so, I mean, I personally don't think there's any downside to not necessarily being a subject matter expert as a chair. You've been a chair of other committees, so you kind of understand like the structure that works well and flows that work well and navigating kind of like how does a meeting usually go? Like I don't have any of that experience, so I would support that, having you as chair and then vice chair certainly being whomever we decide as a team would be a good support.
I mean, perspective as well too. Because I think while we all, in this committee and have immense stuff to add to us, I think because you're not in it, like knee deep, so to speak, I think it does give a perspective that when you knee deep, you cannot see so well.
Sure.
So
Yep.
I think, and that's where we're supposed to give that feedback, so.
I think, I suppose we could also use a format like you chair for a period. And that would give a chance for like other parties, maybe like Jay or I, sort of see what your experience has been like from your other committees, and then maybe we could step in to help.
Is there a term on, is chair annual, is
I
chair,
would say for the whole duration of 1 year.
or is it your entire term? I know different boards have different.
Well, right now, we only got 1 year term anyway.
I actually don't think the ordinance specifies a term. I would revert to.
What's that start for like my social security? Which one is it?
People here have been appointed to different terms.
Annually.
Annually, that's what I thought, yeah, so therefore, if it's annually, next year, we would read, we know you may change over. The one thing down the road that you may want to consider is changing that to split the, if the plan is continued beyond that 1 year, is to maybe split it in a way that you don't lose all the brain trust at one time.
Well, so the terms themselves are 3 years staggered.
Oh,
So
they-
some,
okay,
so
okay.
some of us, I believe, have the full 3. Some of us are on 2 and some of us are on through the end
Okay,
of
I
the
didn't
year
realize-
to
okay.
create that staggering.
Okay, good, and it's not,
But I just didn't know about the chairperson, if that was.
really, I think
That's
chair
annual.
to be at least one a year, I mean, you can't have it for 6 months at a time for this group and especially.
So you said you would nominate,
What's that?
you said you would nominate.
I
Tony
would.
and Amy.
I would,
I've seen you work.
You may decline.
I may politely decline. Yeah, it's, as you can see, even me just like screaming in here at 5:15, that's like a typical day in the life of a clinician. You get it, you never know.
I'm open to being, if you do this, I'm open to vice chair.
I'm also,
Yeah.
no, like
So,
this.
yeah, so I think that.
Voting on chairs.
No, just, yeah, just throwing out
Just discussing.
Okay.
but yeah, but I think if, we should just take the vote and see.
Okay.
So somebody has to put that in.
Oh, do you have a motion?
So motion and a second, and then we'll call poll.
Okay, second.
Pat,
Yes.
Yes.
Tony,
Yes,
Yes.
Jay,
The
Jason.
motion is for you.
Yeah, for him, yes.
Melissa,
That's fine, I'll answer.
Teal,
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
All right, is a unanimous 8-0. Now, do you want to take us over for the,
I can certainly give it a shot. So obviously next is vice chair. So we'll open it up for discussion. Does anyone have strong feelings about who should be nominated vice chair?
I was saying Jason, I know Jason's been in this for a lot. The only reason why I didn't say you is because I know that you're overworked, like Jason. I know I've seen you around, I know what you're doing. And you have the time. I've seen your posts, I know what's up, man, so I'm gonna nominate Jason.
Anybody else have strong feelings?
Nominate.
So should we do motions or?
so we'll need motions and second.
I introduce a motion to appoint Jay as the vice chair.
So,
Right, so we'll do a vote. Start to my left.
I'll say yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 7 yes. Sorry. It's in your part.
I'm here for it.
I will vote yes. I think it sounded like it was gonna go either way. Or go that way. So then we have secretary, which as Carolyn mentioned earlier, is not the heaviest of lifts, because YouTube does the bulk of the work. Everyone's looking at you, Ben.
Yeah.
I know, Ben.
There's something about being a librarian and secretary.
Oh,
It imparts trust.
It does. So
I've seen the movie too.
the secretary or the librarian?
No, librarian.
Yeah. So basically it would just be like if tech failed, then I would need to record motions and yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Does anyone else have any nominations?
That's doubling down on Ben.
Seeing no more nominations, we will put it to vote.
Do you need a second, Kelly?
Oh,
I'll second it. Oh, yes.
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 Just got voluntold.
Congrats, Matt.
Take better notes.
Alright, so with that, we have elected our chair, our vice chair, and our secretary. And the next item on the agenda is to update on facilitator selection RFP, so I will hand that back to Karen.
So, we posted an RFP on the 16th, which was lightning speed in city business. And that RFP was soliciting, a facilitator for this work. As I mentioned, it also, included the possibility of drafting assistance. It closes on the 29th. We did get one question from a potential bidder. It was a professor from Texas that was interested, and his question was two-part. It was, would we be interested in a facilitator participating remotely for our meetings? Or would we be interested in a facilitator who was only able to participate twice? So we would only have them for 2 instances, perhaps for longer meetings. And I will say that I did take the liberty to say I didn't think that that was going to be the most effective way for the facilitator to participate. I hope you'll forgive me.
And on both accords or just on the 2 visits?
I said no on both
Okay.
boards, that I didn't think that it would be effective. Yeah,
That's actually, it's gonna put a lot of work on it.
for sure.
But
And-
it sounds like we still have time for other bidders.
Correct,
Yeah,
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 and that was just their bidders had until, I believe, Wednesday of this week to submit questions. And so we only
They're
got,
actually not
no,
bidding yet.
no,
They're just asking questions.
they were just
And
asking
on
questions, yeah.
30th, they put, I'm going to do this. And-
Yeah.
okay.
And I don't know, they don't tell me whether
Yeah, yeah.
we've gotten any yet.
And how long do you open that window for the names?
So it was posted the 16th, closes the 19th, so
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Which, you know, if we don't get the types of responses we're interested in,
The 19th or the 29th?
29th. We can open it back up, you know, but I figured we'd start with a really brief period in hopes that we can get someone in here really quickly to help facilitate. And so my hope is, because the RFP process will be closed this week, that by our next meeting, I'll at least have some recommendations, if not a selection, depending, you know, I think it kind of depends on what we get. Whether we just wanna, I think you sort of authorized me to sort of make the decision. If it's close and there's some really good candidates, I may ask for your input. We have that situation where we have lots of really wonderful candidates to choose from.
Awesome. Any other updates on the RFP?
Does anybody have suggestions that the city could look for anyone?
There was a great facilitator that the state used for strategic action plan around the HIV response that I could get the name of, but I also think they're far away, so I think it would be another situation where it'd be like 1 or 2 meetings, because they traveled all over the country. But if we get to the end of the 2-week period and there's just like nothing and we want to extend it, I can always try.
How many hours do we say this should take?
So we estimated that at minimum, it would be the 2-hour participating in the meetings, plus we explained work to prepare. But we didn't sort of set an expectation on how many hours. And what we asked for was an hourly rate. So they're not being asked to bid, you know, $10,000. It's, you know, my hourly rate is X. And then
I mean, if we don't get any candidates, we can also maybe revisit whether or not we think trying somebody who is remote, just to at
Mhm.
least have that person in the room. I mean,
Yeah.
If nobody comes through in the RFP process, maybe that's a conversation we have in a future meeting.
The other thing also is by the time we make that decision, we'll have to consider that. That I'm guessing put us in 2 meetings into it. So we will also have a good idea of what momentum too.
Mhm.
So we can say, oh wow, we may not need one because the fact that we actually it's moving so I'm just, you know,
Yeah.
and then we just say, okay, let's back that. But like I said, it's the important thing is to get to meet of work as quickly as possible. Because it's, I think, city wants it, people want it, we want it.
I think the University of Maine system, in their, has in the, like, the chancellor's office, some sort of function that trains facilitators. So they may have like a list of people they've trained, that they can send it out to. I'll see if I can find
Yeah.
a contact there and forward it to you.
Sure.
Is it appropriate to?
Yeah, and also, I mean, our staff has worked with facilitators in various professional functions and, they've freely forwarded the RFP along to them. I reached out to someone in Brunswick who just said it was too far. So I think, to the extent we know people locally who are willing to do the work, that would be wonderful.
Information is like 8 to 10 years old, so they may have completely reorganized, but
Any other comment on facilitator? Seeing none, next item on the agenda is to discuss public comment structure and schedule. So bullet A is public input email. So you want to start with the email?
Sure. So staff have created an email that we can give to the public to receive emailed public input. It is homelessness.committee@bangormaine.gov.
Homelessness.committee?
Yep.
And
Bangor, Maine fully spelled out .gov.
is it up and running yet?
It is, yeah. And so myself and 2 members of my support staff have access to that.
Okay.
And so our plan will be to periodically provide you in your packet the input that we've received to avoid you getting,
Spam.
emails after emails to your personal email. And my question to you is, and I wanted to ask you before we just did this, are you okay with me asking city staff to do some public outreach on your behalf to, post to social media and put out a press release saying this is a place that you can go to provide the community? Okay.
My understanding from the previous meeting is that the email would be established and posted to socials in the interim. And because that seemed to be how the proposition of the email was phrased, is this way to collect the public input while we didn't have a format, so I'm all for it.
Okay.
I did have a question about the city's agenda as well. And maybe it's just another misunderstanding of mine, but I thought that we would have some of the research that we requested.
Just later, yeah.
Yep, it's in the agenda. So public input email, city staff, make sure everyone is on the same page. City staff is going to promote that, put it out in a press release, put it out to social. We're all in agreement that is.
But one thing also is it'll be helpful if some of the feedback that goes to council people gets routed that way too, because people may email specifically, let's say Angela Walker or something, that they be encouraged to centralize the same way rather than shooting a separate email to all communities.
Okay, absolutely, and I think that's actually a good point. There may be instances, generally the public emails council collectively, and I also get a copy of that. But if the public emails a counselor directly, I don't get a copy of that.
Yeah.
Which means that they may be getting input that they may want to pass along to you, and I will communicate to them.
And we don't want the public to think that we dismiss them because we never got it. So I think that we know that that's the way to get to you.
We'll get, so that's a good segue. I'm gonna go a little off agenda here. Do we
Sure,
have
do that.
a council representative at this time?
We have not had a liaison assigned yet.
We have an
Always
ETA.
spoken.
So,
These are questions.
Oh,
sorry. And I heard Tony's question.
yeah, so
Yes, I believe that, I mean, I'm not sure if the ordinance actually directs it or not, it does. So yeah, the council chair should assign a liaison. We've chatted about it, she has not yet made that assignment. So I will take that as a takeaway for my next check-in with Council Chair Hawes to assign the liaison.
I think it's important to your point earlier, Tony, about they may get messages and things that's the whole point of having that liaison here is to be able to help articulate those things, but also to be able to articulate back to council as a whole, the things that we are discussing, so.
I think that would just be a good thing to generally educate the council on, is that we have this email now, and so if people are getting concerns from constituents, you know, maybe when you're responding to them, maybe the top level comment that you make should be, hey, we got the email, you know, not to dismiss your point, but it might be more adequately received if it comes through this email.
So we don't have an ETA of when they're gonna assign.
I will prompt that more. And if I might, would you like us to craft a response acknowledging these emails on your behalf? And would you like to review that before we start using it?
Like a canned response?
Yeah, like
Just acknowledging that they've received the emails, you know, so that people who email in know that it's been received.
I don't think it just went to a black hole.
Right.
Good idea.
Yeah, I think absolutely you guys should, and I mean, I'm sure you do it for other
Yes.
email addresses, so I don't think we need to review it
Okay.
unless somebody feels strongly otherwise.
No.
So that was the email, however, the first primary bullet point was actually, and I started there just to make this clean, public comment structure and schedule. So we had talked at our last meeting about having public forums, if you will, for folks to come in and share their thoughts. Does anyone have feelings, strong or otherwise, on what that cadence looks like?
We talked about having either a separate forum time or 20 minutes before each meeting. Would be.
I think we tabled the 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think 20 minutes,
Okay.
that's not enough time.
I'm in support of a independent forum that is purely for collecting feedback and, you know, sort of feeling out the community and what their feelings on A, the issue is, and B, the advisory.
there's a part of me that wants to have like two separate meetings, one like soon to get some public feedback, and the one halfway through, just to see where, just give us a gauge of the temperature, of how they're receiving it, how they can hear, because they're hearing what we're doing anyway. So, because that would be a nice way, and then, you know, you're gonna be complemented with the middle part of the email stuff. So I think that would give a chance to do. One thing though is we do this, especially if we do a whole meeting, we do have to put some structure in it, because I honestly, I worry this, because it's so, people are so passionate about this topic, it's gonna turn into unfortunately school board meeting that you don't want to have. You almost like nothing gets done other than people just really taking an anger out at each other or whatever. So we got a way to support their feedback, but yet also giving people some opportunities to do the feedback.
So what are the rules on that front when it comes to public comment? Are we as a committee allowed to say everyone gets 3 minutes, and I'm just throwing a random.
And you may not have a structure yet.
Yeah, do you guys
Yeah.
have a structure?
So our typical structure,
2 minutes.
3, so 3 minutes, and it would also be appropriate if you were interested to set a maximum duration. So for example, for a city council meeting, they'll do no more than an hour.
Mhm.
If you're holding a meeting specifically for public input, maybe you wanna do more than an hour. But yeah, it would be certainly within your purview to set parameters, and then we could communicate that proactively as part of the notification.
Yep.
So people's expectations are met, that they don't come in thinking they're gonna have 15 minutes and they only have
And then, of course, I'm guessing there would be guidelines about like nothing derogatory to anybody. Now, the other thing too is, would there be, would the chair have the authority to say, okay, appreciate your time, but that has nothing to do with the homeless community?
Yes, so we have a whole public comment policy, and we would just deem, if you wanted to follow that policy, we would deem that policy would apply, and that would give the chair the authority to, if you come in and start talking about something completely unrelated or
Could we
use
have-
obscene language.
Just gonna ask if we could have that policy distributed to our emails, at least mine.
That would be helpful for us to take a look at.
That way it doesn't take up actual like advisory time, but we can just pour over it, and if we find anything truly heinous in there, we can be like, we're not that. No, I suspect there won't be anything like that.
You never know.
I know. In the city of Bangor, you never know.
Okay, so it sounds like we're pretty well in agreement that we want a separate meeting. So talking about cadence, and I know you'd mentioned maybe 1 and then 6 months, but as far as that first one goes, respecting everyone's time, as we talked about a little bit earlier, do we think it makes sense to use our next, what would be our next scheduled committee meeting to hold a public forum? Should we go 2 in the road, or should it be a completely separate time? What are people's thoughts?
If we can avoid a completely separate time, I know that when I was asking, when the position was offered and we were talking, one of the questions I had was like, how frequently are we expecting the committee to meet? It was not the frequency that we're meeting now, it was significantly less. So I can tell you, I can't accommodate certainly more than what we're doing now. So I would ask that it not be an additional meeting.
I think also, especially given summer, there's a lot of us that are not gonna be around for that. And I think, and I'm hoping that because it's this early infancy, we're trying to get all the logistics, get some data, so that we can start digging up, that we don't need 2 weeks to do this stuff. We should have a touch base meeting, maybe the exec group every 2 weeks, or with some key, hey, this week, I need Amy to come in or something like that. This week, we may need, someone else to come in. So I think that I could see that happening, but right now, at least for summer, I wouldn't do a separate meeting just because I don't think it needs.
I know I support that totally, Tony, because again, like if I'm not at work, I have 3 kids that I'm taking care of. And when I am at work, for instance, today in a 4-hour period, I saw 17 patients because I have walk-in hours too. So, yeah, the less frequent, the easier it is for me to make sure that I can get here on time and devote attention.
So Amy and other advisory members, how do you feel about like a format where there are some of us who are sort of like designated members of a forum group who attend like this forum meeting that would not be part of the regular schedule, and then
Like a public comment?
yeah, like a public
Separate
comment,
public
and then
comment. Yeah.
and then that information would just be consolidated in the packet for you to review.
How often, I was gonna say, how often is that gonna happen?
Well, I would want to know if Amy is, is okay with it.
Yeah, like if what you're asking is if we were to have a separate meeting differently from our regular scheduled Tuesday meetings, is it okay if some of us are not able to attend? I'm fine with that. As long as the group is fine with that, I don't.
I just don't, I mean, my thought is, I was hoping that would be few, because really, it should be the group, entire group listening to the comment, that's just.
That's fair. That's fair.
So once in a while, I can make it all.
Yeah.
But I don't see the plus side in terms of us have the group listening the comments.
Yep.
And reading it, because I'm guessing to some degree, we can even ask questions when someone making comments, that we can take, can you clarify what that means? I can't get that through reading a transcript.
That's true. Yep, I think that's a fair and valid point. So I would say if we think everyone should be there, which I'm also totally fine with, I would just personally ask that it be on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And this doesn't stop chair from, any of us at some point say, hey, you know what, we need a special meeting, just ask specifically about this. people can come and give that feedback. So that's prerogative, but it's just for the general piece. Because, you know, it's also, it's helpful comments, we need to get the work done. So the comments gonna give us some guidance where to start the work, and then, you know, we hope that they are fit, that we want to do what they put forth. And again, you know, we may not hit every comment, we may not hit everyone happy, as you said. So at least that give us a roadmap.
No, we won't make everyone.
No, I think we know that.
That's the one thing we can walk away.
As much as we can
No
like
comment.
hope and
I think I suggest we do this like in 2 weeks, like that we just
That's
have
fine,
this
let's
meeting
do that.
thing.
Yep.
Again,
Let's do that meeting for that, yeah.
Like,
especially knowing that if the hope is to get a facilitator, we're not gonna have one here in 2 weeks, so we might as
Yeah.
well be
Just get
efficient with our
comments, yeah.
time and utilize that to get public comment, yeah.
So do we think that,
Nope, I was just to say, do we think, and putting a timeline on that, like hour, like you were saying, I feel like, you know, normally if we're here 2 hours, like I feel like 2 hours is a long time to, you know.
Well-
But that's just,
and I think it depends too on the cadence, right? Where this is the first one, we may want to have that extra time. I mean, just because this is gonna be the one where the most people will likely show up.
And you can also encourage people for in the interest of time, where they're, you know, whatever, they can submit their comments using this.
Right.
Get it out, you know, and then we get, and then that takes, it may not be a whole hour and a half, 2 hours, I don't know, so.
Well, I mean, if only 10 people show up,
Yeah.
it might be shorter. But I think from a scheduling, just being optimistic, come on. From a like public perception, public need place, I think having that 2 hours probably make, at least for the first one. But that would bring me back to, do we think that the next scheduled meeting is the right time? And is that enough time for city to get word out and feel like we can make sure
I think
people
so.
know?
So that's something that I have a lot of strong feelings about. I feel like if we just do one sort of introductory public comment meeting, we are at risk of just soliciting the most tokenistic, most accessible opinions, because people who might have scheduling issues, people like Amy who have children at home and a full-time job, are not going to be able to attend that one meeting that's in our regular format. You know, we're at risk of not capturing a wide enough or, you know, heartfelt enough group of public comment.
I think
And
that's the value of the email too. But I also understand majority of the folks that I'm caring for don't have easy email access or reliable email access. And there's a fair amount of work that goes into needing to get to a computer and get someone's computer and then checking the computer and all the things. So I think that's a fair point.
I mean, that's,
The other thing also is use this first meeting, get a gauge what it's like before you decide if I know.
I'll agree with that. I
Yeah,
mean,
because that way you can see, okay, only one person show up, and okay, then we deal with that. But if we had got a, like, you know, line packed out here, it's okay, we do need to have something separate on top of that.
yeah, I agree with that, you know.
The other thing I'll say, and I don't think we need to workshop this to completion here, is the committee may want to do some amount of meeting people where they are and getting comment.
Yep.
And so we don't have to do all of the public comment gathering here. We may want to reach out to maybe some stakeholders who are interested in hosting, maybe not all 9 of you, because that might be overwhelming, but hosting a contingency to get.
We do have some outreach experts here.
Yes,
Uh,
I fully support going and meeting people where they are. Obviously, it's pretty much my entire job. So yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I had somebody reach out about a meeting that happens every second Monday, a leadership committee. Jesse Archibald is the person who reached out, and so that might be a good opportunity for a group of 4 of us, like whatever it takes to not be a public meeting that we didn't advertise, right, you know, so that we're not violating any laws. So like 3 or 4 of us could go to a meeting like that and hear what folks have to say. I'd be happy to reach out to her.
That wasn't top of
The one thing I
It
was,
was Monday.
the one thing I would do then, we can do this behind the scenes, is like set up some guidelines, what we're gonna do. If you're gonna send me an email, to what are things that we could do or shouldn't do out there? Because we don't have the group to back us up, so.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a good
So you
point.
can set up some guidelines, say, hey, we only listen to feedback, we're not giving you opinions about anything, like.
That's a really good.
I literally have that thing that the city solicitor told us to say up on my computer screen in case there's Zoom meeting. I need to-
Like the fear of God.
That will please the city solicitor. And it's on record.
I made all my close at me too, my coworker who just passed city solicitor.
Things like that. This is just my opinion.
So it sounds like we're in near agreement that the next meeting should be a public comment meeting. Is that
Yes.
accurate? We need a motion to make that happen, or is that I don't think so, but.
Can we bundle the 1 hour time frame in that motion?
So we're thinking of limiting it to 1 hour, or are we thinking going our scheduled 2 hours?
I'm okay with 2, if,
We could do,
Hour and a half.
no, you go till I cut you.
yes, I was gonna say we could do split difference, do 1 hour of comment and then 1 hour of discussion of the comment.
That's,
Okay.
you know, do an hour, half comment or 30 minutes.
Sure, perfect.
Love it.
Yeah.
We're nothing if not amenable.
Nobody's approaching, we can all just.
Yeah, we're doing 30 minutes, man. The chair.
If we publish that we are gonna take public comment until, let's just say 6:30, and we get one person that shows up at opening, do we have to remain until 6:30, or is that
We'll publish it to be up to
okay?
a particular amount of time, so I'll say up to an hour and a half of public comment.
But you know, we can print out any email feedback, so if we have, let's say, you know, lull, this is where you can read up a comment or something.
So I actually have a question about the email feedback, just appreciating that volume and management of that. Like, is there an expectation that each email gets acknowledged and addressed? And if so, if we're getting a very large volume, how we want to navigate that, or do we want to cross that bridge when we get to it?
So if I understand correctly, when somebody sends in the email, they'll get essentially a bounce back, or not a bounce back, but a response, automated response saying, hey, we've acknowledged your commit. And then city staff is gonna bundle that into a packet and just send that to us in bulk.
Right, and then once it, sorry,
No, go
did
ahead.
you have more to say?
No, you
Okay, once we get that in bulk, when do we review that at the next meeting? Do we review those at a public comment meeting? Like, when do those get looked at by us? Because I can imagine if, you know, say there are 20 emails every couple of weeks, that's a lot of public comment for us to manage and sort through each meeting.
Can we have,
Like, how does that?
can we have that information archived? And
It's archived, it has to be archived,
Yeah,
right?
it has to be.
right, what I mean is like, for the express purposes of, you know, like our review, you know, like outside of, that way we are truly capturing everything, but if we're getting like 15 hate comments and 5 comments from, you know, stakeholders, you know, we can, you know, look through that database yourself and say, okay, well, that's a hate comment, skip, you know.
I'm hoping that I don't, as a committee, we don't have to deal with emails that don't apply to us. You know, if it's something that's inappropriate, something that, you know, just talking about, you know, parking committee, doesn't come to us. And we just deal with what's here. And then, yeah, that makes it too. And then, and again, I was wondering if it's possible that maybe you and Carolyn talk separately. I'm actually more interested in the themes that come out.
Sure.
If 12, 50 emails all has the same theme about, you know, homeless individuals on, you know, Cedar Street. Okay, then that's a different discussion than reading every 50 emails.
Right.
So that could be a way for you folks to figure out, process, identify, hey, we've noticed 4 themes that came out, all this feedback we got.
So I think you're absolutely right. That is one, but I also think that as we're sending these out or we're getting these emails as committee members reviewing them, and then if we're seeing themes because I might not see a theme that you may see or that Ben might see. And then sharing that so that it gets added to the agenda. I think that's how we address it. So
Okay.
we all
So there's not
independently.
like an expected, we have to have an individual response to each and every email. Okay,
I don't think so.
beautiful.
I think it's.
Although it actually
We
would be that
review-
bad idea, if let's say depending on volume, I mean, I don't have no idea what volume is, that you decide to dish out like each of us get 5 emails, take a look at what's this common theme. Okay. Nice. This section talk about this and
Yeah, I mean, we can look at that. I mean, I think once we understand the volume.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
keeping in mind that realistically early on, we're gonna have probably the largest volume.
Yep.
And in that instance, I do actually think it would, and open to other suggestions, but I think if we're reviewing all of those, and I know it's time consuming and we're all incredibly busy. But then again, everybody has a different perspective.
Yeah.
Teal, you may pick up on a pattern that the rest of us aren't and be able to say, hey, can we add this to the agenda? So that not the next meeting, the following meeting, we have, like, that's sort of making the basis of our agenda moving forward is, okay, these are the themes that we've gotten from public comment. Here's what we've seen from the data. Here's how we can start having meaningful conversations to address these themes and the data.
That sounds great.
So is that something that we could just like self-direct if we had access to those archive of emails, we could pour over them, extract some themes? And if any of us felt passionately about a theme that we encountered in the wild, we would be like, okay, well, you know, let's bring it to the advisory and hear what Alton has to say.
Well, and I think hear what the committee has to say. But I, yeah, I think if I'm understanding correctly, Karen, please. It will all have access to all the emails. It'll be part of the packet.
I was planning to make it essentially every week I would.
Every email will be printed?
Well, I'll include it in your PDF packet. You
Oh, okay.
certainly aren't obligated to print them out, but it will
So
eventually
logging
become
industry
part
would
of the
appreciate
public record of the work of this committee by being a attachment to this packet. Great.
Will it be on the website for the general public?
Yeah.
Will he,
Oh, great.
can we put something on the email, social media that whatever is emailed to this address will become public?
Yeah.
Because I just feel like that
Yeah.
would be something that people might not be immediately aware of.
But you should also be aware that everything you email the city of Bangor is public.
But you're right, not everyone has that
Yeah.
understanding. So that might be something language we want to make sure
Yeah,
we
for
add
sure.
to the response email.
We can put it into the automated response.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments on public comment? So next meeting will be public comment. Following meeting, we'll get into our regular routine. Do we want to talk about ongoing? Or do we want to table that and start with?
I would,
Yeah.
I really want to start getting to hearing Robin speak. No, seriously, I would just look at it, and then once we get that, we can go from there.
I'm in agreement. Awesome. All right, well then moving on to city staff info and data, which Dr. Tony,
I was just like, oh,
passing it off to Robin.
She could say Bruce would do it.
I gave up my chair. We pulled another one over and the 3 staff people all tabled up and I can disappear.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that, you.
Nothing would make me happy.
No.
Come on, Bruce, say-
You mean.
Burr.
You're all right.
Good.
Mr. Chair, if it pleases you and this committee and my contemporary, I thought that what we might do is I could introduce the structure of the memo and talk about the data sources. And then have David and Bruce talk about the data specifically. If that sounds like a good approach to do, and I can come in and kind of build out whatever might be.
Absolutely.
Okay. So in your memo here, we have compiled what we know from city sources and available sources that we commonly interact with. We were not able to pull new raw data and analyze it in preparation for today's meeting. So I'll preface this by saying, we understand that these are ongoing conversations and we can drill down into anything that you see here at any time. So we organized this data into 5 domains to kind of create some buckets and give us a little bit of structure for your discussion. So we talk about the scope and characteristics of the homeless population, faces and places. We talk about the conditions leading to homelessness. We wanted to address some of your questions regarding population movement. And then there are 2 other domains that we felt were really, really chunky, and we could give you an entire meeting just covering the homeless response system and then also the individual and community impacts. So at a later date, we'll build all of those things out for you. But we felt like there was a lot here. So to pull the different plans, studies, and reports, I have listed them here and everybody has a link so you can go in and you can look at that source material. We've given you the data in a very distilled format. You can go back into all of these documents and look for some context if that is helpful. And we'll also try to build that out for you here if you request it. Some notes about data though, and I don't want to assume that everyone is a data geek like me. But if many of you are working in a field where you're touching social issues, you might know that not every data point is measuring the same thing as the data point next to it. And homeless data is really no different. The geographic boundaries, the populations, the encounter types, all of these things mean that one number is not always measuring the other number. And a good example of this is a 1-night count of those that are sheltered or unsheltered homeless is not also the same number that you can port in any other count of how many homeless individuals we have in the city. And for that same reason, whoever is collecting the data also has their own geographic scope and aim for that data. So they might be measuring it a little bit differently. Our continuum of care measures data in a hub, which for our hub is 3 counties. Penobscot County also collects countywide data. The state collects statewide data. And so at times I'm giving you numbers that are not only describing the city specifically. But what we can offer is that potentially in some of these numbers, you could create some assumptions about to what degree that number does describe the people that come through here. If the city as a service center is providing services, then maybe a county-wide number describes something related to the services that are provided in the city. We also talk about a couple of different terms, just to kind of make sure that everyone has a good foundation. The point in time count, when we talk about the point in time count, it's a 1 January night, a bunch of volunteers and staff go out and make contact with the number of individuals that they are able to count on a single night. It's not an estimate of that total. We also talk about service utilization. So these are encounters and visits, shelter beds. We're talking about capacity in a lot of those measures. We think about data in terms of unique people, but we understand that you might have a unique person that visits every service, and so they are counted multiple times. And so you're going to see numbers that might describe the same people. And then we talk about, the definition of homelessness is different for many different sets of numbers. So for the school, their definition of homelessness is lacking a fixed, regular nighttime residence. the HUD definition of homelessness is not having a suitable place for habitation. So in those ways, you have a number that describes a very different condition of homelessness than the other. And so then you might compound some of that to say, well, what about the data for those who are at risk of homelessness? Again, a number of data. So it's really important to just kind of look at what is the data attempting to describe and make sure that we ensure that we're not kind of dragging that same definition of the data to another data point, because we could misunderstand.
Is the variation in definitions or whatever criteria you're using based on their funding requirements? Because, for example, you would think, well, everybody wants to use HUD definition because it's equalizes playing field, but I understand that some funding may say, well, this is what I'm paying you money for, that you have to look for how many people, and that's why they change the quality data to reflect that. So do you think that's the difference, why people are different in terms of what they're looking for?
I think in some cases it can, like I said, it could be that the intended use of the data is different from who collects it.
Okay.
But another reason could be that the data that they're looking for is compounded, or the approach to collecting that data occurs at different times in which your concept of what is an equitable measure is different. So that definition might have occurred many years down the line in, a best practice, for example.
SAMHSA and HUD are a good example of that. HUD and SAMHSA have different definitions and they have two different funding structures. So a
Right.
lot of times you end up with overlapped requirements on the person that.
And not to be cynical, but I know sometimes with data, you almost use the data to answer pre-existing conclusion you have to say that, oh, see, the data shows like 100% of these people are all involved in crime, when or 100% are, medical issues, 100% involved in mental health, because you look for that data. Versus someone who basically have a neutral slate to see, okay, what is the difference? What is the variation? So I think that's something just, again, at the end of the day, it depends on who's asking for the data and how you tally it.
And
Right,
what the
and-
question
Yeah, what the
is,
question
is,
of
yeah,
why they're
yeah.
collecting that data.
Right, and in some cases, the data is due to, I need to go and find the answer to the question. So I'm essentially creating an experiment,
yeah.
right? I'm doing a test and I'm getting the data. And then, to your point, the definition of homelessness for youth, lacking a fixed regular nighttime residence, that definition takes into account education and grades and the things that you need, right? Like a fixed regular nighttime residency. So I would like to leave it there, and I will come back in if you have questions, but I know Bruce and David have some really good data here also. And if you have any specific questions about some of the data that I pulled, go from there.
Sure.
Do you want to start?
Glad to. Yeah, so I know you're all busy, so I just printed out some of the data that I had. Just so you can look at what our community action team has been collecting for data. And I'll give a little bit of background on our BCAT, just for those of you that aren't familiar with the program. We found it to be tremendously beneficial at the city level and at the police department. And if you've already seen this, or you don't need data, feel free to just link the papers.
Remind me that BCAT is Bangor's.
Yeah, so it's, the acronym is Bangor Community Action Team.
Okay.
So this was developed in 2023 by the city. It was more of a collaboration between public health and the police department. What we found at the police department was more and more of our officers were responding to calls for homelessness, mental health concerns, and things that people weren't particularly comfortable speaking with a law enforcement officer in uniform. So we developed this civilian response team, and it's essentially, it is the boots on the ground for the city. And you see numbers. If you look through that first couple of pages, not to focus too much on the numbers, but You do see, and if, I'm sorry, to the left or right, the columns go month to month, on down. So, you do see an increase in new people, typically in the summer months. And then the numbers tend to, drop in the older months of the year, which I think makes sense. People are utilizing warming shelters, some people go to our area and then return when the weather sort of changes. So just what you're looking at on this first couple of pages is calls for our BCAT. These are all non-emergent calls. And so if you need a police officer, typically a BCAT is not being sent to these calls. That is the breakdown of the types of calls that they go on for all calls for the month. Diversions. What's diversions? Diversions are for us. Somebody self-identifies as not being from Bangor. They do not want to be in Bangor. They have a place to go. They'd like to get home, and then we verify that they're welcome. So we do not complete a diversion unless the person has a place to go and is welcome there.
How do you get home though?
Typically, we coordinate through public health. We'll set up a bus. Yeah, a bus, a ride. BCAT has provided a lot of rides as well if somebody has a place to go. So that's what the diversions are, and you will see those numbers tend to increase as the weather gets colder, I guess.
Do you have a sense of diversion, how many of them a local diversion, like a place in Penobscot or someone in Portland?
Yeah, so then they started, if you go to the third page, I think, the pie chart. Okay. They do actually, so this was a new addition. They weren't collecting this. I went back 12 months for the first set of data, and then the second set of data for the pie graphs. They only started collecting this back in December, but if you have a chance to look through that, you can see the breakdown of housed, unhoused, from Bangor, not from Bangor. And this is self-reporting. So these people are identifying that it's not a determination made by that, it's what the person that they're speaking with is.
So what are the limiting factors on supporting someone who is in this diversion category? I mean, if they're from California, do we finance a bus ticket for them to go to California?
I don't know if we've gone that far.
But we do go far.
So, yeah,
If
if you do something on the other end, I know by the phone, it's probably the same thing. Yeah, they usually they get somebody vouching for them on the other side and they want out. Find them a way. Yeah.
been helpful for us.
Look at this pie chart, looks like almost every month is roughly and not from Bangor transit out of state.
Right. Yep. Good observation.
I think, can I just just because a lot of these folks I've also interacted with, like you said, it's self-reported demographic.
Yeah.
So patients may not identify as being from Bangor, and then I talked to them and they spent 10 out of the 12 months for a long period of time. They were just like, well, I was born in Connecticut, but I've lived here for Connecticut. I've lived here for like 10 years. I was in Portland, but now I'm back. So I think, again, like when we were talking about data, I think it's always important for us to look at the way questions are asked, how folks are responding, how we're collecting it.
So actually, that's a good point. So when you say not from Bangor, does it mean that, I'm not talking about where you're born, but are you currently from Bangor area? I mean, I hear that you may have been from Bangor because you're born here and then you'd here for 20, 30 years. To me, you're not from Bangor, it's because you haven't been living here.
Right, so I think that's the piece with this data. No, like I've worked really closely with BCAT over the years, and it just depends how somebody interprets the question and how it's asked, and understanding that BCAT's not collecting this information to publish it in like a research article. So like the variable, we're not like making sure the questions are like very specific necessarily, so.
General assistance will ask you to be in the town 30 days before they're considered a resident. You get assistance from general assistance.
It does also ask you for your last stable housing address. So again, people are asking the question for the data point in a way that is helpful for them.
The last stable could be a year ago, that was stable.
Could be.
Can I ask you a question? It's not necessarily relevant to the data. What do you do for foreign nationals that are? Do you encounter that population a lot, and what sort of protocol does that entail?
I'll have to get back to the committee on, if we have had an interaction with a foreign national and how that went. But I'm not sure on that one. I don't know, you need to.
I could just anecdotally, I have not run into many situations where folks are from, that are foreign national or trying to get back to their home country. But just because I haven't encountered it doesn't mean it hasn't happened, you
I'll
know.
tell you.
Not in Bangor anyway, but it has happened in
New
Boston.
York City, DC, we usually work with the embassy.
Yeah.
So we identify someone truly, I mean, I remember one person was, he was German. And we worked with the embassy to arrange the transportation, get him home.
Yes.
He was a German national, and that's it. And then sometimes State Department do all, but again, that's New York City and DC, we have tons of those. Whereas here, you really, you know, this is the end of the line, so to speak, from Greyhound, that people usually don't come up this way. Usually. So.
Yeah, so I mean, this is just the data that was collected by BCAT. I didn't want to interpret it, I just wanted to provide the
Yeah,
data
yeah,
and
Thank you.
any of the opportunities, data that we provide.
Very helpful. Thank you.
If you have questions about the BCAT structure, am I fine to email you, or is there someone else that I could?
You certainly can. And, you know, I was thinking when the committee was talking, I can, when I get back to the police station, talk about members of the committee would be interested in getting into a car with BCAT or just getting to know them. It's a 4-person group. They're great. I know Amy has extensive experience with them, but they really.
Yeah.
I would have to think about it.
The question is, if this data, do you have an idea how many people released from incarceration that end up being in the house?
Released from incarceration.
Yeah, like, you know, you're done, you just got released, you got picked up, and then now, okay, you're done, you got, you know, this dropped charge. I presume they don't send you home only if you have a house. They said you're done, right? You open the door, and do we have an idea how many people fits in that category?
It would be anecdotal. I don't have a percentage, but I know it happens on a regular
And as far
basis.
as you know, currently, there's no system where the jail would call somebody and say, listen, we have so-and-so here, we're about to release, he has no place to go. Can you guys facilitate him going somewhere? We don't have that structure in place.
Not yet.
Yeah.
I am in the process of reaching out to those places like Fresh Start, the jail, and those places, so that when they know that someone may be going on the streets, that they can get a hold of me and I can help give them resources wherever they may have to go.
It'd be great if you find some data. Just curious. I'm just curious because
And I will say, when it comes to releases too, even with like any attempt at a system, like often you don't know when the release is coming and you're gonna get released at like 6 a.m. unexpectedly.
I mean, it would be great if they could get a packet with the local.
They just leave in my card and they can call me the next day, whatever it works.
They have a phone.
it's probably like, it's like in some cities, I know, like, you know, Rikers, people get dropped off at this bus stop and somewhere in Queens, we would get a bus, metro card, whatever it was back then. And then a couple bucks and that's it. So that's the point of drop off, and many of them have no place to go and then you're on your own. So I think here, probably, okay, you're done, the door's open, you can go.
I do think the jail could provide data if requested that would show
That'd be interesting.
based on inmate numbers, incarcerated individuals who identify as transient. That's the code that they use in the name file. They use
Yeah,
transient.
again, it may be a not huge number for, I just don't know what that number is.
I agree that it would probably provide insight to the advisory.
I'll try to reach out to the Popular County Jail and see.
Because my supposition is if they're not giving support, you're setting them up for recidivism in the sense of like, you know, they're gonna get in trouble because you're foraging for themselves.
And I'll also say, like, having worked pretty closely with a lot of the folks at the jails, because a lot of folks that I care for are in and out of the PCJ. If that's not happening, it's probably not because of I'm not saying that you're saying that, but it's often not because it's a lack of desire on the jail side. It's again,
I
like
think it's a structure.
terrible, system and structure
Not
and
inside,
staffing
it's
and like.
From my understanding, like, Sherlock Moore is quite invested in that kind of stuff, but if it's not there, you can't do anything.
100%.
You know?
I think also if we reached out to the main prisoner reentry network to find out whether they are supporting or raising certain data that could, highlight a trend that you might find helpful, we could see if they have anything available. I don't know if they do.
That's a good point, Robin. So there is a state program, supervised community confinement program, which is you're released into a community with housing. And I believe it's 90 days. I could be wrong. I believe it's 90 days with housing, and then you're released after the 90 days. And that does happen routinely in Bangor. Two different programs.
So
Is there like a different street name for that? And I don't know how to describe it, but like certainly might provide a lot of prescribe a lot of Suboxone. So as folks get released, they'll walk in and I usually will say like, are you on any release conditions? And they'll be like, I'm on a bed to bed. And I understand that bed to bed means I was released to a residential treatment program. And as long as I'm attending that residential treatment program, I'm good. I don't have to be in jail. If I bounce, I have to go back to jail. Is there like a street name for supervised community confinement?
Well, they
Might know of.
they go by the acronym SCCP. Yeah, you're familiar. Yes. SCCP.
And so if folks at Fresh Start might be part of
Yes.
that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They take SCCP feedbacks all the time.
Leading the way.
Leading the way is the problem.
Probably.
Yeah.
leading the way.
this sounds like a group we're probably gonna want to solicit for feedback, honestly. This,
Now, does the main prison reentry network have anything to do with that? Well, you were just asking about that. Are they the ones supervising the SCCP folks, or is that the boards?
I don't know the answer to that.
Typically, we're notified if somebody is being accepted in the SCCP program. We are notified through state probation officers that the person is being moved. They had a particular address in Bangor.
That could be a really valuable group of stakeholders is the POs, because a lot of our folks, certainly my unhoused folks that are on release conditions, whether I don't know, it's like SCCP, that are staying at Fresh Start are leading the way. There's only a few POs that like.
Chad Reynolds.
Yeah, Chad and
That's overseas leading the way.
yes, because I've had a lot of folks that leading the way, and often if they're gonna, folks that have been previously unhoused are sometimes more motivated to do an SCCP option. Because it also gives them a space to be in early recovery, in a more stable and supportive environment. Because you can imagine if you're released from incarceration, you've had a period of sobriety and you're released back to being unhoused, it's really difficult to maintain sobriety or recovery or whatever term works for that individual, while living outside. So many of our folks do opt for that, and the POs have been very supportive, I know, and really, really helpful for people. And I'd be really curious, like anecdotally, what they've seen is helpful for folks that have been previously in-housed, has worked, and what hasn't worked.
I do have his email address. I'd be glad to reach out to him.
There's one other one. Yeah. Rob. Then somewhere, Chad.
Rob works for DHS.
Okay. Anyways, doesn't matter. I can find it, but
Just.
that would be great. Thank you.
And I think it's in the hyperlinks that Robin sent out, but I also brought in a printed copy of the city's homelessness crisis protocol. And so I don't know if the group had an opportunity to do that yet as well, but
Somewhere it's a hyperlink, I think in a sense, but I'm not sure. I don't see any.
so it's actually on the city's website as well. It's one of our public facing policies. So if you go to the city's website page, police department, you can find it listed under the policy as well. And this was a mandated policy that was created by the Attorney General in 2024, I believe. And it was mandated that all police departments in the state have a policy in place to address I think primarily what we were seeing was unhoused individuals flooding the jails, and it was for low-level crimes that it was just a real challenge for the individuals that were being incarcerated, and then also for the jails that were being flooded with folks who were being held for a series of low-level crimes that we were seeing on a regular basis. And so, a copy of the protocol is on the city site. I will just highlight briefly that there were the crimes that were identified as if a police officer interacts with an individual and that individual identifies as unhoused, using a definition that Robin had mentioned earlier, the definition in the policy is a person who is experiencing homelessness that lacks a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. That's the policy definition. And the crimes that were listed were criminal trespass, disorderly conduct, indecent conduct, urinating in public, possession of scheduled drugs, or drinking in public, when possible. And there's obviously provisions that allow for different actions for discretion from the officers. When possible, we try to refer somebody to resources as opposed to taking them to the jail.
Yeah.
And so that's obviously something that I think affects law enforcement statewide. But it's something that was developed by the Attorney General's office as a mandated policy that does, I think, sort of play into what we're working with as a committee.
Can I ask this? Oh, sorry. I was just gonna ask a question for specific to Bangor. When officers kind of come across the situation, do you know what resources get offered to folks?
So I brought the
You like set it up for me.
Sorry, you probably saw this in here. So these are the resource cards. If you haven't had one of them, I thought I'd bring them in just so everybody could take a look.
Super helpful, thank you.
Yay,
More. And these.
it's gonna be fun.
Yes. Yeah, I actually grabbed those. That was the new one.
that's the new one.
Yeah, it just came in.
Extra.
So
I don't know.
I can bring that one.
I feel, yeah.
I think I brought it.
Good morning then. Greedily.
It's all right.
Yeah, we still
I gotta update our address, Bridge Clinic, that's the old one.
Actually, this is a great committee for if there's changes or updates, let me know.
Right.
We'll get those.
I will.
So,
Do you ever utilize resources, like out of state? So meaning if somebody's saying you need a detox or a bed somewhere, whatever, like are there in crisis and here is full and can't get in, and, out of state, New Hampshire, or whatever, may have that availability? I'm just curious, or, do we, I've seen many situations where people need it right then and there, can't get it, and they're just put back out on the street, and then people having to advocate to get them elsewhere, and it ends up being out of state. But a lot of people don't have that support to get them there, you know what I mean? But I don't know, I just know of a lot of those places out of state that they're looking to pull and help. And sometimes to get that help, you can't be here. You know what I mean? You get it here, you leave here, you're out back where it all is. And so to get them out where they can really do the work, I'm just curious on that resource that's given to them. And there's a better one.
Good question. I think basically. Yeah, when we're working with people on the streets, if someone wants to be in recovery and wants to do something like that, and there's nowhere around here that we can get them in. BCAT has done this, and then Joe Hartel put together place also gets people really going in that direction too, and a ride and options. And we'll take them down to St. Mary's, and so they'll go through the hospital there, then get into detox.
Kind of, like realistically, obviously what we're saying is there are fewer detox beds in reality than what it appears to be in the state. And there are surprisingly a large proportion of those are in Bangor, which is a beautiful thing. There's often a wait to get into detox. If you present to one of the hospitals, it is surprisingly hard to stay for detox. And similarly, so like St. Mary's, we'll just use St. Mary's as an example. Often we can get folks a ride to St. Mary's, but if they don't get admitted, there's no way for them to come back.
Usually we make a call down there,
I think the challenge is if you're sending someone for either program or family, we've seen this, we've actually done it, where it sends patients back to their family in New York State. Unless you have an intervention along the way, you can easily just basically look like you shipped them and they're not dealing with it because they get lost in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember this patient we actually had was, home fleet liaison, Jay Trumbull, was basically able to contact his counterpart in Portland, who met him at the bus station.
Yeah.
So he had like an hour to kill where he basically talked to him about treatment. So by the time he gets on the bus, and then by the time he got back to New York, he was ready to get treatment. Otherwise, he would just.
Stay in Portland.
Yeah, it would probably, yeah. So I think it's a lot of labor intensive stuff.
Yeah.
And you be so much like creative and really, I mean, ideally, you'd like to have the time to do that, but not everyone has.
I would just put notice to those of us here who are providers or working in the services or in outreach, that's something to look out for is patient brokering. I know that during my sort of work at Together Place, that is one of the issues that we ran into were these sort of brokering agencies that come through and their job is to recruit patients and farm them to an out-of-state recovery program. And it doesn't take a lot of research into this practice to find out that a lot of states have outright banned it, and B, like the federal government has taken a good interest in trying to limit it. And it, obviously, I can't outright declare that it's dangerous, but I think if you talk to our stakeholders and our friends on the streets, you'll realize that they think it is. You'll realize that when they interacted with these patient brokers, they did not feel safe. And so you have to be careful when you're working with outside providers because you have no way to hold them to account if they're.
Usually you do that if you have like a concrete plan that they will take the patient, they have vetted everything, the patient said, I want to go to agency so and so. That everything is discussed, that kind of really just facilitate that, but I agree with you, you don't be like, hey, I got a great program out in the middle of nowhere that we'd like to get you into it.
And that's the format that a lot of these patient brokering structures use. Like I know that during my research of it, when we were trying to investigate one agency who was doing it here in Bangor, by the way, was that like some of their affiliates are widely reported to put people into treatment facilities with no running water. So, it's like, that doesn't thrill me. So that's one of the things that I worry about.
I know, Melissa, back to what you were saying about out of state, like we used to have Project Hope at Ellsworth. Would Bangor do that for a brief period of time? Did Bangor PD do that for like a really little bit of time? Are they still doing that? Ellsworth PD? I don't know.
I think the water bill.
Yeah. Used to be Ellsworth. I might be a mistake. It was a long time
I think it's
ago.
water bill.
Might be water.
Does I know Bangor PD, many of us get CIT training, do they get any orientation or training working on the homeless individuals so that everyone has some competency, some basic knowledge of what challenges they face?
I can answer that question because I paid for our Beacon staff to have trauma informed training a couple months ago, so I know that they've received that, but what about, yeah,
Okay.
the BCAT
I'm talking about
team.
officers in general.
Our trainings are typically online now.
Yeah.
So, you 1 hour.
But you didn't get it? What is it? I mean, I haven't seen the training, so I don't know what it
I think it was
involves.
in last year's, it was either last year's or 2024's mandatory training.
I'm just curious because the thing is also like, if they have, just like anybody, if they have a great response with police officer, they're gonna welcome others, but if they're really bad interaction, it doesn't matter what program I have, they're gonna say, I don't trust you because, this is how I got, suckered, last time. So I just want to, see what programs the Bangor PD has. And the second question is, do we know if, other jurisdictions around us here have similar approach? Because like, if you guys take this humanistic way of looking at it, but other jurisdictions take a much more black and white approach, that means we're gonna get hit, more people wanna come here because this is how people are treated.
Right, I try to avoid police lingo, so I might have just done it a minute ago when I say mandatory training. So when I say mandatory training, that is statewide, so it's mandated by the Criminal Justice Academy, and if it's a topic that's required or mandated, then it's mandated for all law enforcement, so everybody in the state would receive the same training.
And the interesting thing about the CIT training is a couple of things here. They're mandated to have at least 20% of the force across the state. So Bangor has a little bit higher of a number on that because their force you can take the time off.
Okay.
But there are two actual trainings. There's an 8-hour training and there's a 40-hour training.
You took the CIT.
Yeah. And most of the officers are taking the 8-hour training.
You were talking about training specific to dealing with homelessness issues, right?
Yeah.
As opposed
I use the CIT as an example. Again, I'm not saying that you need to take a CIT like course, but I'm just saying like, what education do they have about some of the challenges homeless people, encounter, the perception of police, perception of law enforcement, how does that, how do we bridge that gap? I mean, things like that.
Is that kind of some of PCAP's role as well, right? It is to kind of be that in between and have a little bit more specialized experience.
It's a really good point, actually. And that was, we did, the level of trust with law enforcement, I do understand that sometimes wearing a uniform does sort of put people at a little more uncomfortable, I suppose, in interacting with us. ECAT really was very helpful. There were civilian folks.
PD, you guys also used to have that community liaison officer, Officer Ash, and that was wildly helpful. She was, I think she moved on to like a different opportunity, right? I don't think it was anything.
It was a military obligation. But in that position is something that I know Chief Hathaway would like to fill. He has talked several times about, staffing up. He wants to fill that.
It made a huge difference with our folks that were are unhoused, and also just like community stakeholders, like Officer Ash would call me all the time if there was like a theme with either a group or a human.
She liked research as well.
So police also have two mental health liaisons from
Yeah.
KL Hospital, right? Do you guys still have that? Yeah. So they're very helpful.
Right, and there's the 5 officers on our team.
On the option,
Yeah,
yeah.
the options
With
are at least exposed to a formerly homeless person. We can tell you,
So-
they got a pretty good.
And I can tell you, having worked in Boston, the community perception of Boston PD of our unhoused folks was not great. Having worked on the street for so long, our unhoused population actually typically has great interactions with Bangor PD and BCAT. And other towns that are surrounding Bangor, folks do not always have as good of an interaction as they do with Bangor PD. So you guys have done a lot of work to make that happen. It's very appreciated.
Do you prefer Dr. Tony?
That's for this purpose, just on this one.
What I would say is that just an aside from our research from our experts, but like it is very important to me that at some point in our 12-month scope here, that we have an agenda item discussing what the police interactions look like with our unhoused and what the cultural competency levels are for law enforcement on the unhoused, because I think that has a major impact. And I think that what you said is very telling, like, unhoused people in this regard, just like any other demographic of people. I mean, if anything, they're more attuned to this because they have to be street smart on a daily basis to survive. So if they have key interactions, even if they're tokenistic interactions, right? Like one bad apple poisoning the bunch, it creates adversarial perception against all of the services in Bangor. And it pushes them deeper into addiction and deeper into isolation, and deeper into mental distress. So that is something that I really want us to study at some point, because I think it plays an outsized impact.
I mean, I often say like the interaction with law enforcement, also first responder medics and stuff like that. If it's a good spot, my job is a whole lot easier because I'm not spending all my time fighting that emotional toll from a bad interaction with law enforcement or EMS. So I think, really, when they do a good job with, and like I said, I noticed that here also in places. It makes my life a whole lot. So more accepting.
In the interest of time, I wanna make sure Bruce has a chance to talk about his information. As you off, sir, but sure you have full opportunity as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I was just gonna go off, I mean, BCAT, I work very closely with them and they're just a wonderful team too. And they do great work. Just to give you a little overview of what we're doing in community health, public health, community services. I'll start with community services is we have a city outreach worker, which right now starts August 1st. And that person will be going out on the streets, working closely, I think, with Path, going to the places like the Brick Church and the Well and these places and building relationships and starting to work on housing with people.
This is a full-time position.
It is a full-time position. Yeah, I think the last person that held that position, I think, housed, I think it was between 10 and 14 people last year.
So they're doing casework as well?
They are, yeah. So they'll take a person right up the streets and work with them right through until they get housed in. And then we have, after that, we also have a housing stabilization navigator for eviction prevention. So and I held that position before this person just took over. In the year that I did that position, I had over 170 referrals. And we took on, I think, 100 of those referrals. And I helped, I think it was, I have my data right here. So what that is going in and building a relationship with the landlord, right? And building a relationship with the tenant and trying to come up with a solution where we're gonna help these people stay housed.
Housing diversion.
Housing diversion, right? So I would go in and build that relationship with the landlord, see what I could do on his part, talk to the tenant, see what I could do for his part, see if we could get into some middle ground, if we could save the housing, or if we could, or if we would have to try to help that person move on to a safer place. With the shelter, but sometimes it was finding rehousing that person. Yeah. And
So
yeah, no, go ahead.
does that take, I'm assuming that takes the format of also maybe some referrals to services like RAP and general assistance, or is it completely independent of that?
The grant that we worked under, and I think is still working under that for the next year, had its own money under that grant to be able to help people with back rent, help them if they were in eviction.
So going forward, will they have their own fund?
No.
And in that case, will they be following back on those programs like you?
I think we always looked into those programs too. It wasn't just that the two shelters also have diversion funds. So they help people also stay stabilized in their apartment, along with GA, right? So depending on the situation.
Preble Street has a diversion fund?
Preble Street has a diversion fund, yeah. So Janice works there, and then Maria does it at the Bangor area shelter.
And I can say I've been working more closely with the diversion program than typically for what I do.
Yeah.
You know, usually it's GA and local churches and things trying to find that, but most recently I've been working with the diversion program and keeping people housed, which is great.
And, sorry.
No, so adding to, I mean, we worked together to avoid evictions and keep people housed. I think the bigger thing on that is you can only do so much, and then if people fire people, right? Like you get them in and then they are trying to help them with their cleaning, trying to keep it, but they're not housing the rest of the unhoused.
That's the gap.
And then they say, oh, never mind, I'm in, I don't want you anymore, and then they're back out because they've made themselves, or they're smoking in the unit, or they're trashing the unit, or things are happening, right? We work and try to keep them, but then they fire their workers. And that's like our biggest gap as far as housing to keep them housed. The most recent, like I'll use is the 10 we recently housed in a new project, and I have one success story left because we busted our tail, and I'm not, meet with them and do all the things, but those services and people quit, right? So people walk away, they're working, I'm done, I quit, and now we can't hire to it. In the meantime, I'm trying to hang on to them, trying to personally work with them too, but you can only do so much. And then it's that service there's a gap
Yeah.
there.
I mean, in Portland, they just hired, I think, 3 retention navigators. So those retention navigators would fill that gap a little bit, right? Like where you would be able to, the caseworker would work, they got housing, work with them for a little bit and then make that pass off to that retention navigator. But you're right, I mean, and it's.
Cause
and
those
they-
9 people that are back out now have another family.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So that makes us 9, it's harder to house them anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And when I see people, I do the hearings, if they have denials, I'll do the hearings and say, okay, give me all your resource, like things that are going to help you in these next few years. And let's make a list, like I want to help you, but I feel like I'm putting you in the midst of the UFC thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like you need people in your corner
Yeah.
to keep you fighting and not fall into this.
I'm still fighting with people, you know, for some of the people that I've.
Yeah.
So question actually for both of you, from your work and observation, are there certain characteristics of clients that you know, like this is gonna be easier to get this person services with keeping them unhoused versus someone that you know you have to spend more resource? Because the thing is this, we at the end of the day, it's gonna be resource at the end of the day. So there's one person I can keep Amy out, but I'm spending like 15 people around her trying to keep her house, 2, for 4 months at a time. Yes, I kept her house, but I also missed the opportunity to take care of someone who was now vulnerable, and I never got to them because they were willing to get help and triage, combat triage.
Yeah, and I understand that, and but we have a PATH team that does that out on our streets here in Bangor, right? We have the options team that is also out on our street. We wanted to try to fill a gap of trying to make it so people weren't becoming homeless if we could, because we, I mean, in that year that I worked there, I saved over 100 people's housing.
Yeah.
Right? Which, or found them new housing. So like, that could have been another 100 people on the streets.
And
because I could see people who are somewhat receptive but just struggling with identifying resource, it'll be a good candidate for peer support. So basically a peer help them navigate. And versus someone who needs more intensive stuff, that's where
these are intensive people, a lot of them.
Yeah, and
Pierre on the street, that's kind of what I do.
Okay.
Personal lived experience.
a lot of the folks that I care for that have either been chronically unhoused or have like cycled through housed and unhoused, we know that these folks are disproportionately affected by severe persistent mental illness. They're struggling with substance use. Many of them have fall into brain injury categories, whether it's because of overdose or assault or all the reasons that people can acquire brain injury. And when we house them in a new place, they're navigating, how do I stay connected to my recovery provider, my mental health provider? How do I get there? Typically, as people get housed, their housing navigators pull back. And even with peer supports, Bangor is, believe it or not, a really geographically tricky city to navigate if you don't have a vehicle. It costs money. It's very time consuming to take the bus. The walking routes are really tricky. So if you have someone that can't transport you to your appointments and you don't qualify for links because you live on a bus line, you start to fall away from all of the folks that were getting you stable to help you get housed. So I think looking at post-housing support, there's great opportunity for us to be more creative with how we provide that support, and transportation is a huge piece of it.
One of the things like that some research looked at is for people who have been institutionalized all their lives, whether it's in jail, incarceration, home, hospital, they stand a high risk of not knowing what to do outside because everyone's been taking care of it without whether they want to or not. Suddenly they're being forced to fend for themselves. Some people actually want to go back to jail, want to go back to the hospital because of the fact that it's easier. And not because they don't want to, because it's so tough for them to navigate. You need a PhD to navigate some of this stuff, and even then it's not that easy. So I think that's where, if someone, I mean, I can almost guarantee if a patient comes to me and she said, I've been in the hospital for like 40 years on my 50 years of life, that person is gonna have a hard time dealing with that stuff.
And many of our folks, we have great compassion for young people that have struggled with homelessness. And we see generational homelessness. And when people turn 18, we're like, you should have figured it out on your own somehow, even though nobody taught you how to do these things. And I've worked with folks long-term that get housed, they don't know how to do their laundry because no one's ever taught them because they were unhoused since they were 14.
Legislative things.
Again. Right, and they're 25 now and they've lost housing 18 times because they can't keep their unit clean because no one's helping in their unit or triage their
We do
staff.
have that with even people that are out, right?
Right.
They have now
100%.
that you see the generations, like they now, their kids are in housing, right?
Yeah.
But they had these issues beforehand and now, and you know, we really try to work with them to say, okay, what, you know, yes, the house is, you know, we don't wanna make you unhoused, like we need to keep your house, this house is unsanitary, what are we going to do? How are we gonna do it? Do I feel like because of certain lack of services, like we are now a little bit of everything, right? I'm not just the, you know, the property manager, I'm also similar to a caseworker, you know, a PSS worker, because I'm like, okay, you Windex that, I'll show you how to Windex this, right? I'll go in on boots on the ground and do the work with them, but it's not really the job, right? But we are all trying to work together to keep it, and you know, it's difficult.
So I know some agencies, each of them do different things like educate, how to look at, you know, getting housing, getting assisted, you know, assisted support or whatever it is. But there's no organized city efforts to say that we have a series of, you know, education events that, you know, Purple Street may want to tag into and we can support them and things like that. So because it's really kind of free for all, whatever agency wants to do, I don't think, is that correct?
Well, I think every agency has a different mission, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some are work with low barrier people, low barrier situations, and some are more high barrier.
And layering all of that on is like staffing, funding, all the things
So
for agency.
I was gonna offer at a future meeting that we bring to you a ecosystem map of the current services.
That'd be cool.
That you might be able to draw lines between the agency, the service, or the pathway that someone might navigate. Just to understand how the system currently functions for someone that is actively, you know, navigating through that, to try to see if you can identify some weaknesses.
Does the city bank currently have any like a forum where all the agency who provide homeless care can get together one, you know, to just discuss things?
Typically, that would be through the continuum of care.
A coordinator, we meet weekly. There's running candidate meeting, which would be the people that are outside, and then we also meet for coordinated entry. So that's a meeting where anyone that has done an assessment for our coordinated entry system would go into that, and then we would talk about them for vouchers that are available.
No, but the patient, I'm talking about all the homeless agencies get together as a group to, you know, just have a discussion to say, okay, these are services we do. Oh, okay, so if you're doing that, I figure a way to get my people to help, you know, go to you and get services so they can all coordinate services. Because I get the feeling sometimes we have too many agencies providing just coordinated care. Like someone's doing something without coordinating and then we lose.
I can say that from my insight in the recovery community that we do keep a pretty close eye on each other. I mean, if anything, the patient brokering situation was a good example because we were able to tap our network of other recovery agencies and shelters and say, hey, did someone strange come by and talk to your clients and say, we'll take you to California to have a VIP recovery experience? They're like, yeah, something like that. So we do math with each other about available recovery beds, and you're right that it is probably more of a free-for-all than it deserves to be.
But what I will say too is there's a lot of agencies that on paper offer a service that in reality is not accessible. So when you're looking at who the stakeholders are, the list looks this long, in reality it's this long. And it's really difficult to coordinate in a efficient and effective way among multiple agencies.
And it's not coordination,
Right,
again, maybe I'm using the, so, and I'm going to take my other disaster hat before. We used to have this thing called a voluntary organization active in disaster, where basically you pull different agency involved in human service work. And you have the focus on collaboration, corroboration, you know, cooperation and things like that. And we basically would meet regularly to say, okay, this is a service we can provide, blah, 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 blah. And we actually call people out and say, okay, you said you have this list, but are you able to really do this? So people can discuss this as a group, not just say, well, this is it, and take full words of, faith that that's exactly what you do. So we can say, okay, you say you can provide this case management, how often are you doing that? Can you do all of that? Can you, do you think this a sustainable program? I mean, we put people on the spot as within that group.
Sure.
And then that way everyone knows, you said the case management knows exactly what sometimes would call, but that's the informal network. You still need a formal composite to say everyone has a clearinghouse of stuff that we know exactly where folks can try to at least ask those questions. So
I think there's great opportunity to that. And I also will say, I've been in some of those, we have like somewhat of that situation going on right now because of the HIV outbreak with regular meetings with stakeholders. And even when you're on the ground and you know that that's not happening, when you do call folks out, they don't always acknowledge that what they're saying they're doing isn't what they're actually doing.
totally agree.
But I think there is incredible opportunity for that as an intervention.
And I would want to enjoin Amy's point about how sometimes, mostly incomplete good faith when it comes to like the Bangor agencies, people say one thing and then do the other. But when it comes to constructing like a food web of what services are available, I think there's sort of an informal question of available to who that is super, super important and super relevant to why we have so many people who are openly not seeking shelters, who are openly not seeking services. One thing I learned from my outreach, because I try to reach people who I feel are not being reached by others. So that's transgender, gay, queer individuals, Black and brown individuals. And one thing that I heard particularly from transgender individuals in recent discourse was, we're not going to stay at shelters because when we stay at shelters, we're misgendered, we're touched, and violent things are said about us. We're not allowed to use the women's facilities. And so it's like, I could role playing as them cross off half of the food web right now if I look at it, because if I was in their shoes, I wouldn't want to go.
And I think even for people without any specific issues, to figure me if I go to shelter, I'd be taken advantage of, I'd be bullied, kind of makes me just, I don't want to go. So, I mean, we see that even for folks with nothing else going on. It's in fact that I'm a new kid on the block, they gonna stop picking on me kind of.
Well, that's a marginalized position too, new homelessness, not when your streets aren't developed.
Yeah.
But Bruce, whatever final point you can get across.
Yeah, I mean, we have general assistants at the city, obviously, and that they are seeing people from 8 to 4 or whenever they come in. I mean, also keeping people housed and also helping people that are looking to get into new places. So we have obviously the WIC and health promotions. What do you want there? Options, yes.
And you have case management.
I'm sorry, yeah, we have intensive case management for the HIV breakouts, we have to do case management.
Now, I know this data could be abstractable. Who would have the data say, we can extrapolate that, how many people become homeless, how many people leave homelessness? Because at the end of the day, you want the net to be more people going into homes. Yeah. So who can extrapolate that data?
So we call that in HMIS data, inflow and outflow.
Yeah.
And let me see if I can find where we have that. Did I see it in the front?
So that's the limitation.
I might have added it to it. I think I might have added it to the response system data, so you might not have it here.
Okay.
But there is a way that they're tracking when you're putting someone into the system for the first time, or when another hub is either known to someone that was, entered into like the beginning hub. And then, when they're, find housing, then they are considered inactive, and then they can, be completely.
So shelters, both shelters, we put people in the HMIS when they go into shelter. And then the PATH team would also do the same thing when they're working with people outside. the team at the city, we don't put our data into HMIS yet. We're working on that. So that, I mean, it's only as good as what's being put in there as well. Kind of seeing, you know.
I think that's how far we don't know what the actual number is.
It's like impossible.
But
I know it's impossible, but I don't know, is there a
Yeah.
way?
Right, you're not gonna get, and
Yeah, and it is, because I heard you talking earlier, I mean, about the definition of homelessness. When a person's couch surfing, they're not considered homeless.
Right.
And, or squatting.
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
so like, that's a whole different number of people
Yeah.
that come in and out of the streets throughout the day.
Yep.
Right?
Right, and that's very much by season, that's very much,
Yep.
we see a huge change in that by season. And talk about like in and out of Bangor, it's not uncommon, we have folks that are from Bangor that have been in Bangor, they have a relative in Lincoln, that they can go to Lincoln for 6 months until they burn that bridge and they're back in Bangor, so it's
And there's
so
people
hard.
basically that get incarcerated, go to hospital, and they consider house, even though they, you know, they never did anything.
Yeah, right, they put it up, excellent, yeah.
Bruce, can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
When we're interacting with the unhoused and we're collecting this data for HIMSS, are we apprising them of the fact that we are putting them into the database?
So they are told when they're in shelters, I'm not sure what PATH does, but I know that both shelters read a thing letting them know that they're being put into the system.
And
There's an opt-in on
And
Yes,
is
there is
there,
an opt-in and out, yeah.
is there a way that they can revoke their data if they would like to?
Jason would,
Yeah.
yeah, he's been in
Yeah.
that more, yeah.
that. I should sign that.
Yeah. I should just come to you first whenever I have a question.
So, the protections are there, there are opt-in and opt-out.
I feel like, this conversation, like, I already knew there's just tremendous work being done by all of these different agencies and agencies that don't happen to be at this table tonight. I feel like there's a large population in the city that has no idea what's happening, and even listening to the conversation might say, that's all alphabet soup to me, I have no idea. So I think one of the benefits of this committee might be finding a way to think about the rhetoric of how we talk about this, because like, this is a great conversation. I have just great respect for everyone around the table and what you do. But there's not necessarily as many people seeing it the way I see it, the way my coworker Olivia sees it, working with all or many of you, and not you, but I don't know. Maybe she just
Maybe some of them.
But yeah, but I just feel like, you know, it's heartbreaking that I get to see how much good work is done by each of the agencies you represent and many more. And I know there are many people who, for whatever reason, don't see that and don't understand the value. So I hope that we can also think about bringing along the rest of the population with the way that we talk about this. I'm not saying anyone's talked about it wrong tonight. I'm just saying, as we think about it, like, and that can be an element of public comment in a couple of weeks. How do we hear what the person's saying and say, how would it change someone's mind if they heard us talk about, you know, independent living in terms that relate to the very complaint the person had. So that's just what comes to mind. You know, I hear things that people are saying, and I'm just like so excited because I know it's like a lot of work that goes into it. But I just, that's the other thing I want to think about is how do we as this committee help the general public?
It's been, right?
Yeah.
So when I actually interviewed for this position, that was my whole platform. I said that like one of the major focuses, one of the questions was, how would you address it? I mean, if you had $3 million, what would you do? And I said, well, I would focus on restoring trust and I would put advocacy up front of the issue. And I would try and pressure the city councilors to put this in layman's terms, because this is a heavily pathologized issue. And in this room where we have providers who are experts in it, it's even more pathologized. And the layman has almost no access to the terminology we're using. They have no understanding. And they can do simple math and they can do great math, but they look outside they see that the issue is growing every day. And they see that all of these experts are speaking in these heavily pathologized, siloed ways that don't make sense to them and don't make sense to the stakeholders. And they're like, I think that's contributing to the issue. And it creates the adversarial angles in the city. So I think that that is something that I really hope that this committee can focus on as well, is just removing these barriers, doing more direct advocacy and direct outreach, and appealing to the layman, and teaching our citizens and community members what it is we do, why we do it, why it's important, and maybe there are other avenues that we can pursue it that simplify the process and make it more accessible.
I mean,
So
like,
one of the goals that you guys really identify as part of the end product of this is to figure a mechanism to continue to educate both professional and non-professional about homelessness and how it's evolving. Because I think, you know, your point is right, I mean, both of you suspects. We start talking the way we just used to talk, because that's how we function. But it changes even for us now versus 3 years from now. So, and I think a lot of the challenges of, you know, the population face, as well as communities, because no one gets it, no one understands it, from whatever the perspective. So I think a goal for this committee as a strategic action, 12 months, is probably on how to have a system of ongoing education to just about services and also destigmatize the challenge of doing.
What has to happen for the city councilors? I mean, they cycle through,
Yeah.
so.
Well, that's why you're hoping to build this in.
So if we could create a playbook for the city
Yeah,
councilors to
yeah.
use.
Having some historical knowledge.
I mean, they change, but the staff don't change as much, so that's where they can do.
And inviting a regional response.
Yeah.
To get
One thing
more
that
stakeholders.
I thought of when you were talking,
No, that's fine.
but something that I actually wrote down in my notes here is I think it'd be interesting if one of our unhoused or recovery agencies would do something like an unhoused education or like welcome to homelessness, where we could do sort of an open class for newcomers to homelessness, because like I said earlier, that is a marginalized position, and say,
It's to be naked and afraid in Bangor,
yes,
which is not a zoo. It's a horrible experience.
The one challenge with that is when you do education like that, people already have an interest, they want to go learn about it. You need to build in a way of education that how it ties into almost everything in our community. Even if you don't think about homelessness right off the bat, all these have implications of homelessness, if let's say food insecurity, heating bills and all kinds of stuff. So I think there's gotta be just regular education, but there's also other things to build in that, hey, everyone is invested. It's not just this person because he's homeless. I know some jurisdiction, for example, they had, I can't remember which jurisdiction, where the mental health budget was not by one entity, but by everybody. Education department, police department, everyone has to build in budget. They said all of you have a stake in it, so you guys gotta be part of this. So it's the same thing in terms of education, that everyone, even if they have never seen homeless, but they gotta know what they do.
In the interest of time, as we're getting close to wrapping up, does anyone have any final questions or remarks for any of the staff that we have here today?
Melissa asked me to pass on her request for the next date and time of the meeting to be sent to her email, or at least posted on the Bangor City site.
It's the 11th, right?
Yeah. 11, I think that's the information on, right, people, not
5:15.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
unless anyone thinks
No,
differently, I think we keep it the same time.
yeah, I mentioned Elton that maybe a few minutes late, but.
Anybody else? Motion to adjourn?
Oh, so one last thing, what are we asking the staff to do for next week? Didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think for the next meeting, we need to have that protocol for public comment, if we could have that sent.
Yes, I'll email the policy. If I don't turn on the mic, it doesn't go through the TV. I'll email the policy and we'll start doing public outreach to encourage folks to come to that session. And then maybe, because we probably won't have an opportunity to have a robust conversation about the next meeting, maybe folks could send their input to you, Alton, and then we can coordinate on an agenda.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's likely gonna be a really weak agenda for the next, if I recall correctly. We were thinking 90 minutes of public comment and about 30 minutes for committee discussion of said public comment. And I mean, that essentially would be the agenda. However, if there are other items that anybody wants on the agenda for that conversation, please send it so that we can make sure it's included.
I think this, what, you're gonna give that map or something, that, something you were saying you're gonna show.
Yes.
I can't remember.
So we, as technical advisors, thought to continue the conversation and the data by looking at the homeless response system, building that eco map, and then you had mentioned that you wanted to hear like other municipal examples, specific things that the city is doing. So perhaps if you maybe have ideas about what that should entail, it would give us all that much more time to prepare for you. So any lead time that you could give us with what you'd really like us to bring would be helpful.
What email should we send that to?
You can,
But I think you're on the list, actually.
yeah, I'm on the, I think that you've I think I've seen
Yeah, you
your
did, yeah.
emails, so, yeah.
I think with the election of a chair, it probably makes sense to work those asks through the chair.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to everyone else?
Okay.
I got,
I mean, include both of us, right? Like, you can cut out the middleman. Does that make sense?
oh, but then the numbers are going up. The solicitor numbers.
Number of public documents.
Either way is fine. Okay. Send it directly to me and I'm happy to coordinate.
I'll probably CC both of you. I don't really understand how technology works, but I'm gonna try and believe that it's out there. And it will find me.
Thank you so much for all the data.
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
Yes.
A great place to start the conversation. I'm sure it took a lot of work to pull all of it together.
I appreciate our experts here too, who are not only working on the issue on a daily basis. Deep niche knowledge to bring to us.
They'll be in this room, right? Next meeting.
Yeah, that was right.
Yeah.
We are gonna do it public comment in this
For
one,
the
correct?
public
So I'm
comment.
guessing we set up there, well, people set up here, is how it works now. I don't need to tell you later, so.
I would suggest that you either could sit at
I won't
count,
be able to see the people.
Or-
Have them.
we could rearrange this
Yeah,
table,
Yeah.
and then folks will step to the podium to give their comments.
See, like,
I just worry about the power dynamic of that. I know it's just like.
Yeah.
You know what?
you're right.
You're worried that it'll go
I
to
feel like
your
I'm
head
looking
if
down
you're
on
like right
people
there.
and like.
It will be stigmatizing.
Just do the table, I'll table.
When we did something similar for the opioid advisory committee, the committee did sit at this table
Yeah.
facing the audience.
Yes. That's perfect, yeah.
Cool. If there's nothing else,
A motion adjourned.
I second the motion.
I do need a gavel. Can we requisition a